If you put Patrick Bateman, the Joker, Anton Chigurh,
Anton Chigurh,
and added in Rupert Pumpkin's sense of humor, you would get Homelander, the petty, narcissistic leader of the Seven. Hello everyone and welcome back to Always Watching. Today we are discussing the evolution of Homelander from Season 1 to Season 3 to prepare for his rise and eventual demise. Ever since watching The Boys, he is all I can think about. I think he's such a great example of nature versus nurture, but also just a great example of how we've become slaves to products and companies that were meant to make our lives easier. And what's worse, how they will eventually kill us all. So by the end of this video, please let me know if you've ever felt sorry for this man, or if, like me, you cannot wait for his demise. So I'll start from Season 1. Lines may get blurred, so please be very patient. We are first introduced to Homelander as the patriotic leader of the Seven. However, we find out very quickly that Homelander, as well as Vought, the company responsible for unleashing these maniacs into the world, is just a gigantic cesspool. In the eyes of the American public, they are gods meant to serve their national interests. However, behind closed doors, they are a bunch of spoiled brats that use their powers to take advantage of everyone around them. The show establishes pretty early on that it's not the superheroes that are in charge, but this military pharmaceutical company that calls all the shots. To manage their egos, Vought has created the Seven, an elite group of superhumans led by the most powerful superhuman of all, Homelander. As leader of the Seven, Homelander rules over them like a brutal dictator. He subjects them to all kinds of humiliation, punishments, weird tests, and expects 100% loyalty from them. For the most part, the company doesn't really care about micromanaging the Seven because they see them as spoiled brats they have to cover for anyways. To resolve this issue, they put a woman named Madeline in charge, who is the middleman between Homelander and the Seven, and those on the top floor that make all the decisions. His relationship to Madeline is so creepy and so strange, and it makes a lot of sense as the series goes on. Because of Madeline, Homelander believes that he is the company's greatest asset, and he associates the company's reputation with his own, which is why he goes through great lengths to protect it. Very early on in The Boys, it's very clear that Homelander does not like being kept on a leash, and he doesn't like being told what to do. In one of the best pilot episodes, Homelander ends up shooting down a plane full of people, all to protect the company's biggest secret, which is that superheroes are made, they are not born. What Madeline does well is convince Homelander that he is the company's most important asset in terms of growing and expanding their reach. However, what Homelander doesn't really appreciate is that the bigger this company gets, the smaller his role becomes, because at the moment, he's got as high as he can go, at least in this point, which is leader of the Seven. And the more the company is able to develop Compound V, the more they're able to stabilize it. It's only a matter of time before they're able to create a superhuman far more powerful than Homelander, essentially making him obsolete. What I appreciate about the show is they make it very clear that just because you have superpowers, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can control people or get them to do whatever you want. However, in the case of Homelander, it almost is. As much as Homelander's demise would give me just great satisfaction, it's almost impossible to demonize him without taking into consideration this company that created this monster in the first place. In a lot of ways, Homelander is the best and worst example of innovation and progress. Sadly, he was raised in a lab to become the strongest, the best superhuman of all, surrounded by people who were terrified of him, and this turned him into a monster. One reason that Homelander, as well as the Seven, are able to get away with literal murder is because they're marketed to the American public as gods, and as gods, they do whatever they want with impunity. In the case of Homelander, he has done so many horrible things, and it doesn't appear that he has any remorse for any of the things that he's done. I think the show is very clever in that they don't show us the worst of Homelander. They discuss it, we get flashbacks, But it's made very clear that this is a man that has hurt a lot of people. In season 1, his past comes back to haunt him through Billy Butcher, a man whose wife he brutally assaulted. After assaulting his wife, he forgets about her completely, and it is suggested in the show that this is something he does quite often. And unfortunately for Homelander, this assault ends up producing a child. Rather than use this as an opportunity to right his wrongs, he uses this child as a chance to fill this well of insecurity that is his soul. As terrible as Homelander's childhood was, he often uses it to justify his own brutality. He constantly moans and groans about all these things he's been through and how hard his life was, and these complaints only get louder and louder as the seasons go on. One major theme in The Boys is this idea of family. Homelander has never lived in the real world. His entire existence has been curated. And for that, he kind of fetishizes this idea of having a family, which for him is an army of people completely loyal to him. He has this very deep need to be loved and held and desired, but then he also has this need to kill and murder and just wreak havoc on everyone. And his sense of control is very much determined by how other people view him. By the end of season 1, he ends up killing Madeline, and he has this bond to this woman we haven't seen replicated in season 2 and season 3. And Homelander is very much aware of all the propaganda that Vought feeds him, and as well as the American public. However, there's a lot about himself that the company has kept from him. There's a lot about himself that he doesn't actually know. He had no idea that he even had the ability to have children. And the thought of Madeline or anyone in this company keeping secrets from him as the most powerful superhuman of all just makes him feel so insecure, makes him feel just powerless, which is why he burns a hole through her skull at the end of season 1. He just couldn't live with being lied to. And this whole thing about being lied to comes up quite frequently. And again, it's not so much the lie, it's the way that the lie makes him feel, which is that he doesn't have as much power over people as he would love to believe. His relationship to Madeline is really important because she was able to tap into this need he has to be loved and desired, and she was able to tap into it in order to control him. She was basically this invisible hand guiding all his decisions. And without her, he's completely lost. We get to season 2, and season 3 marks the beginning of his journey to independence, to self-acceptance, and just world domination. As hard as he tries to recondition himself from Vaught's indoctrination, this is a lot easier said than done. In season 2, he decides it's time for a promotion. It's time for people to put respect on his name. So he makes his way to the top floor, and there he meets Stan. And the conversations he has between the CEO of this company and Homeland, it is some of the best moments in this entire series. He's basically told by Stan that he ain't nothing. He will never be anything, that he is actually not the most important product that the company has. Instead, he's just an item on a shelf, and if he chooses to malfunction, well, he can be replaced in a second. This is the first time we're starting to see Homelander realize that, first, he might not have as much power over people as he would love to believe, and second, he might not be as important or irreplaceable as Madeline made him feel. Madeline had a way of catering to his ego, pandering to him, making him feel big and strong, and Stan is like, I don't got time for that. You need to go back down to the floor. I don't even know how you got into this room, but he puts him in his place. And this is something he does quite constantly to remind Homelander that he is not in charge. And one of the ways he does that is by undermining his leadership in the Seven. And Homelander, he just doesn't know what to do with himself. He's never actually had to navigate the political or corporate world because Vought always covered for him. They handled the logistics, they handled his image, so he's never had to really be bothered with these things. In terms of being a superhero, Homelander is exceptional. He knows how to problem solve, he knows how to assess a situation, he knows how to cover his behind. He's basically just a fantastic criminal when you think about it. But as a human being, He is just so immature, which makes a lot of sense because some of the most powerful people in history are also just some of the pettiest human beings of life. He is so powerful, and yet he is so bothered by the most minor of inconveniences, and he has trouble problem solving just basic issues, and you see him get flustered a lot. And the reason for that is he was designed to take orders. He was designed to be a soldier, never designed to stand on his own 2 feet, which is why Stan doesn't really worry about him, because he figures, well, if he gets out of line, we can always bring him back, because he just doesn't know what he's doing. In season 2, we are introduced to probably one of the most annoying characters in television history, Stormfront, this ageless Nazi who dreams of an army of white supremacists to take over the world. And I have never been happier watching someone die than watching Stormfront die. Like, the actress who plays her, she really went toe to toe with Anthony Starr. Like, this man, can we just take a moment? I don't know what to say about him. He gives us range. He gives us range. He gives us crazy. He gives us sad. He's a roller coaster of emotions. And I felt that Stormfront was able to kind of match his energy. And Stormfront is a great example of how just because you have superpowers, that doesn't necessarily mean you have intelligence. She's probably one of the most powerful superhumans on the planet. And yet she believes that white supremacy is possible, because it turns out that Vought was actually founded by a Nazi. And ever since she turned into a superhuman, this has been her goal. Even though she was hired by Stan, and her goal seems further and further, like, she can't seem to accept that if it wasn't possible back then, why would it be possible now? And Homelander's first impression of Stormfront was fantastic, because he got the ick from her right away. And I do have to give him credit. Like, he didn't like her energy. He couldn't stand her. When he finds out about her whole idea of master race and master plan, he's so confused. Like, lady, I am the master race. I'm not, like, he looks at her like, I'm not sure how you connected these dots, but I'm just going to use you to feed my own ego. And Homelander, he believes that he's the only man in the sky. He has a god complex. So everything Stormfront was saying to him was super juvenile and super petty. Despite all that, the only reason he ends up warming up to her is because she's very good at social media, and she helps him start to take control of his own image, something that Vought has done his whole life. And as hard as Homelander tries to convince everyone, he really cares what the public thinks. He might not like the public, but this image of America's Superman is very important to him, and he's not willing to part with it that easily. We see him get super depressed when his poll numbers go down. We see him get super excited when they go up. So validation, again, you have this man that's a superhero, and yet he has this sort of human desire to be loved and to be accepted, but it's on a narcissistic level. Stormfront is also very important, just in terms of helping him take control of his image, but also replaces Madeline as this elderly woman that can give him comfort and give him strength and just tell him everything he needs to hear, that you're big and strong, you're amazing. Yeah, like he's so desperate for that, because again, he's never been raised with a mother and father. And Stormfront presents this opportunity to build this family, or live this fantasy he has of family that he's been dreaming about his whole life. In season 2, we begin to get very invested in this storyline between Homelander and his son Ryan. When Homelander assaults Billy Butcher's wife, she gives birth to his son Ryan. When he finds out that he has a son, he's in complete shock. He never knew that he had the ability to have children, which makes me wonder if there are more little Homelanders out there. Homelander first starts intruding into Ryan's life. It does feel like he might get bored, that he might be doing this to be petty and get back at Billy. However, as the series goes on, it becomes clear that he's obsessed with his son. In the beginning, he just wants to be around him, but slowly he starts to criticize his mother, Becca. He doesn't like the way that she's raising him, and he really doesn't like the fact that she's hiding his superpowers from him. He feels like she is lying to him. My first impression of Ryan is that he's a very kind-hearted kid who loves his mother very much. And sometimes you do get the sense that Homelander is jealous of the relationship between Ryan and Becca, because he never had that bond with anyone. He was raised in a lab, surrounded by people who were terrified of him. This whole question of nature versus nurture is really important when it comes to Homelander, because when we meet his son and later his father, Soldier Boy, you do wonder, was Homelander born bad? Or like Ryan, did he have a kind soul that was eventually destroyed by this company? And the more time he spends with Becca and Ryan, Becca almost becomes the enemy. He starts criticizing her. He starts talking badly about her to Ryan, telling him things that he really should be consulting with his mother. Homelander slowly starts to become very aggressive in terms of trying to get Ryan to love him over Becca. He wants the same type of loyalty that Ryan has to Becca, but he's never able to fully get it. One of the ways he starts to build trust with his son is by telling him repeatedly that he will never lie to him. He tells him about his superpowers. He tells him that his whole life so far is just a curated experience meant to control him. And the more information he tells Ryan, the more Ryan seems to warm up to him. And this whole thing about honesty, Homelander, he's very big on lies. He doesn't like to be lied to. He just, as far as he's concerned, he's an honest person. And it's everybody around him that's forcing him to do evil deeds. And he tells Ryan everything but the way that he was conceived. And the longer that the secret is kept from him, the more explosive the situation will get. Because from what we see, Ryan loved his mother very much. And as attached as he may become to Homelander, it still loves his mother more. He also has the potential to be far more powerful than Homelander. So once that secret is revealed, Homelander's days might be numbered. Towards the end of season 2, Homelander is forced to part ways with his son when members of the Seven blackmail him with this video of a plane crash. So very early on, I believe in season 1, Madeline orders Homelander to go save a plane full of people, and he ends up almost killing these people before the plane crashes. And this video, if leaked to the public, could potentially destroy his reputation and make him public enemy number 1. However, everything turns into a chaotic mess when Ryan accidentally kills his mother and is forced to side with either Homelander or Billy Butcher. And again, the only reason that Homelander backs off and doesn't eviscerate everyone around him is because of this video. This video is enough to keep him on a leash. And again, it's very telling that this video was enough to get him to back off, because he very much craves affection. Because for him, a lot of his sense of control comes from the public's validation. And without it, he's lost. That might actually be his kryptonite, becoming infamous. Season 2 ends with Homelander plotting his demise, just spreading his seeds all across America. And again, it never ceases to amaze me how petty this man is, despite his superpowers. We then get to season 3, and season 3 is the most explosive, the most entertaining season so far. The series begins with Homelander suffering the repercussions of having gone out with a Nazi. I love how he would visit her for an ego boost. Like, that made me laugh. Like, he didn't care that she was charred to bits. Like, he was just like, listen, I just need you to tell me that I'm important so I can get on with my day. And he doesn't start off the season very well. He's dealing with the aftermath of Stormfront. He's also still wondering how he's going to get back at Stand. And to make matters worse, he's been assigned a co-captain, Starlight, this woman he has been trying to kill from season 1. He's always known that she was trifling. And so he is just this ball of rage waiting to explode. It also really doesn't help that he has this blackmail video hanging over his head. And this video really bothers him because Homelander really doesn't like being kept on a leash. He doesn't like people holding him back. And all these pressures cause him to lose control. And during a televised special, which should have marked the beginning of the end for Homelander, he just loses his mind. He goes off script. He starts to just say whatever is on his mind, telling the American public that he is better, that he is special, that he should be worshipped. And if this company can control a man as powerful as him, what hope do the rest of us have? And weirdly enough, this resonated with enough Americans to increase his poll numbers. And even Homelander thought that he was done for. He was depressed. And as soon as he saw these numbers, he's like, wait a minute. People would accept me for me. And this whole thing about acceptance, he has this obsession that he believes that if people knew who he really was, they might not love him in the same way. But it seems like that might not be the case. The whole thing about freedom and freeing himself from Vought, he takes it to levels that are so extreme, comparing himself to Martin Luther King at one point in his quest for freedom. But his whole thing about freedom is control. He feels like as the most powerful superhuman on the planet, he should be in charge of everything. He should be president. He should be, forget about the company. He should be leader of the free world. And this, for Homelander, was a sign that, wait a minute, maybe people won't reject me if they knew who I was. And this video that he's had hanging over him becomes less and less of a threat. And he starts to push back. He really starts to push back. He doesn't like to be blackmailed. He makes it clear to his blackmailers that, listen, if you leak that video, I am going to destroy the earth. I am going scorched earth policy. And the fact that that's all that he could think about, again, he doesn't really know how to make people submit to him. He's not a very diplomatic person. And so he resorts to what he knows best, which is violence. And this is not an empty threat because no one knows how to destroy Homelander. No one knows how to quarantine this man. And the thought of Homelander just destroying everything is enough to free him from this video. Season 3, we focus a lot more on Victoria Newman. And the contrast between Victoria and Homelander is really important because one of the ways that Homelander tries to rally people for his cause, that as superheroes they should just unite as one, is basically borrowed from a white supremacist. Like, he doesn't really have a lot of ideas. And that's what I mean by his lack of maturity when it comes to problem solving and getting people to do what he wants. Victoria, like Homelander, was raised by the company. She was raised by Stan to advance all its interests. However, unlike Homelander, she was raised to navigate the political and corporate world. And Homelander really believes that the threat of violence is enough to control the people around him. In the case of Victoria, she chooses to side with him because it also frees her from the company. However, unlike Homelander, she has the skill and ability to derail his public image. She might not be able to destroy him, but she can definitely do damage. And season 3 is the first indication we get that Homelander is not as indestructible as he seems. The ability to become superhuman is getting easier and easier as the seasons go on, which means more and more competition for Homelander. Who best to take out the most powerful superhuman of all, but the person responsible for making him in the first place? His father, Soldier Boy. And the addition of Soldier Boy in season 3 was much needed. Like, he is a fantastic character. Like, even though they've never met each other, even though Soldier Boy had no idea that Homelander existed, they are cut from the same cloth. Soldier Boy became superhuman when he volunteered for Vaught's clinical trials for Compound V. From what little we learn about his life, he was a disappointment to his family and his father. And when his father found out that he had become superhuman, he felt like he took the easy way out. That he was kind of just, he was lazy. The idea of family just doesn't appeal to Soldier Boy because he had one. They didn't like him. He didn't like them. And it's just been unbearable ever since. Like Homelander, Soldier Boy is a vile, self-hating, just horrible human being that treated his team like garbage. Like, they couldn't wait to throw this man under the bus, and rightfully so. Like, the more we find out about Soldier Boy, the more we're like, someone put like, everything he says is just gross and unnecessary. When Homelander finds out that he has a father, he's shocked and he's almost amazed. Like, he almost can't believe that this is happening to him. Finally, he'll have that loyalty and this endless well of love that will never go away. He gets so excited by the idea. And coupled with the fact that he was able to get Ryan to trust him just one more time and give him a second chance, Homelander is very close to this dream of family. And the differences between these three generations of men is crucial, because Soldier Boy he's very similar to Homelander in that he was raised in an environment that he wasn't really validated in the way that he wanted. And so he took out all his aggression and his frustrations on the people around him. And for that, they all turned on him. And so when Homelander introduces himself and his son to Soldier Boy, there's a moment where you think maybe Soldier Boy will go along with this. Instead, he is just disgusted. And again, Soldier Boy has lived in the real world. He had a family. They didn't like him. He didn't like them. And he has no interest in... for him, family is not a fantasy. He knows exactly what it is, and it's not for him. Homelander is trying to build his own family. He's really trying to curate this experience that he so desperately wants, but it blows up in his face. This scene when Soldier Boy is disrespecting Homelander, trying to kill him, is really crucial, because for a moment you do feel that Homelander's attachment to his son is genuine, because he's very focused on tending to him, making sure that he's okay. He forgets about Soldier Boy completely. He's very focused on his son. And you're like, you know what? Maybe there is a place in that cold heart of his that may have actual love for Ryan. Until we get to the end of the season, when Homelander introduces his son to the American public, and you come to realize that his son will be a very important tool for maintaining his public image. Might not be Homelander's only tool, because we know that he harvested a few of Maeve's eggs. And if Ryan doesn't work out, he might have his replacement ready to go. But for the time being, having a son greatly helps him in the public eye. And the series ends with him lasering someone and killing them. And I thought this was going to be the end of Homelander. Instead, they all start clapping for him, cheering for him. And his whole life has come full circle. If they can accept him for the monster that he is, and there's really nothing anyone can hold over his head. Or so he believes. The series also ends with Ryan kind of observing his father. And you can see that the gears are turning. Oh... Is that what I can get away with as a superhuman? If that's the case, then sign me right up. And that's how the series ends. What will become of Homelander? Honestly, as terrible as he is very good at staying ahead of things. Probably is anticipating the moment that Ryan does find out about his paternity. However, what his plan is to manage Ryan's anger and superpowers, that is up in the air. Whether or not Homelander eventually dies or ends up like his father, quarantined and experimented for life, that's another question that's also up in the air. Those are my thoughts on Homelander. I think he's one of the best villains on television, because you have this man that has all these superpowers, and yet he's paper mache. His skin is just paper thin. However he ends up going down, his ego will 100% be the cause of it. So you guys let me know what you think. Have you ever felt bad for Homelander? Do you hope that he can somehow redeem himself? Or are you like me, just waiting to see how he falls? So you guys let me know what you think, and until next time.